The greater pressure, in my opinion, and this is kind of a open-ended question, right, would be on the Yankees simply because the future with Soto is uncertain.
Ken Rosenthal with us right now before the big game one. Do you feel it, Ken? Does it feel different? You've covered tons of World Series now. Did this one feel different after the media day Thursday?
Yes, it definitely feels bigger. And there's more media here, of course, including the Japanese media. And in general, just because of all the things we've discussed, the stars on the field, the quality of the teams, the sizes of the markets, it does feel bigger. Probably the biggest since 2016, Cubs, then Indians. But we'll see how it plays out. I'm sure it's going to be really cool to watch just all of these great players on the field at once. That's the thing that has me the most pumped up.
This is kind of like a little subplot that you only get to see. How much media, how much Japanese media are there compared to a year when, when I played with Masa, he would lead his own scrums. We won in Cleveland, and he had his own like live TV where I said something in Japanese on it in live TV. And so I remember that distinctly. Is there more than even in those years?
I would say probably yes. And certainly the presences of Otani and Yamamoto enhances the Japanese presence. These are two of the highest paid players and two of the best players that are in the game today. So, yeah, it's funny, Eric. By now, I'm accustomed to seeing scores of Japanese media at all games because most teams, not most, but many teams have a Japanese player. And when a team has a Japanese player, there is media. So it's just part of the landscape now. It's kind of cool. We all, the American writers and media members, have people that we know among the Japanese media, people who are our friends. So from that perspective, it's been a great boon to just our daily existences, I would say.
Hey, Ken, I woke up this morning super excited about today, but there was one question that kept popping in my head. What do you want to ask Ken? And one thing that I continue to think, as you watch this postseason progress, Aaron Judge hasn't had the postseason that he wants to have. And you have Otani making the move to go to LA, arguably the most talented guy we've ever seen. Soto approaching free agency. So many factors, but which superstar's legacy do you think needs this World Series the most as we go into it? That's one thing that it just continues to just beat in my head.
Cameron, it's a really good question, and we had this discussion on Fair Territory yesterday to some extent. I would say the answer is Judge. He's the captain of the Yankees. He has not won a World Series yet. He has not had great postseasons, although in the ALCS he did some big things. Mookie Betts has won World Series. Shohei Ohtani, this is his first World Series. He's still going to be regarded as one of the game's great players, regardless of what he does. Juan Soto, he's getting his money no matter what. So while all of them have a stake here and something on the line, it seems to me that Judge has maybe the most to gain. Because if he helps the Yankees win a World Series, leads the Yankees to a World Series, he enters that pantheon of all-time Yankee greats, which he already is among, but he then becomes a guy like Jeter and like the others who have won a World Series. Now, of course, Jeter won multiple, and some of the older Yankees won multiples as well. But that, to me, would elevate him to a place where it's a little bit beyond where he is now even.
Ken, I think there's a great follow-up here from Matthew in the chat about the legacy conversation. Matthew says, which team needs this World Series victory the most and why? I'll give you just 20 seconds on what I think, because the Dodgers have been to the playoffs so frequently lately, and they've only come through the one season during the COVID year, but they're also pretty depleted with their starting rotation. On the Yankees side, they haven't been here as frequently, haven't been as dominant as the Dodgers in the past decade, but it's Yankee fans, and it's Juan Soto for this one season, hopefully more after that. But curious what you think. Which team's feeling the heat more as an org?
I don't know that either is feeling the heat necessarily. They both got here, and yes, they want to win, but they've had successful seasons. Now, to your point, the greater pressure, in my opinion, and this is kind of a open-ended question, right, would be on the Yankees simply because the future with Soto is uncertain. And if they don't re-sign Soto, they're a lesser team next year and in the future years. Now, they'll do some things. They'll reconstruct their team. They'll still be really good. But Juan Soto is a singular unicorn-type talent in our sport. So with the Dodgers, they're not in that position. Shohei signed. Betts is signed, Freeman signed, all of these guys. They figure to be back and back in a prominent way, and they'll make some additions in the offseason as well. So I wouldn't say the pressure is necessarily greater, but with the Yankees, it seems to me there is greater urgency.
Hey, Ken, I want to talk about the possibilities of getting Alex Vesia back, Broussard Gratterall, who are two huge arms. And is there a possibility? We talk so much about what the Yankees have in their starting rotation, but the Dodgers bullpen has been lights out this postseason. Is there not enough talk? Because one thing I continue to look at as an ex-player, I would much rather face the Yankees bullpen than the Dodgers bullpen. So I know we talk about the advantages that they have as far as the Yankees go, but is it fair to say that the Dodgers bullpen might not be getting the credit that they deserve as far as, Trinan, Hudson, all of these nasty guys that they have in the back end have been getting big outs?
Cam, I think they're getting the credit they deserve. They had 33 consecutive scoreless innings in combination with the starters at one point in the playoffs, and we certainly saw them win a bullpen game to clinch the National League Championship Series. At the same time, the point you make about Vesia and Gratterall is a good one. The way their team is currently set up, with kind of a shorter starting rotation and a deeper bullpen, they need as many quality arms as possible. Now, we should have a word of caution here. Vesia is coming off an intercostal. Who knows if he'll really be what Alex Vesia was earlier in the postseason and during the regular season. And Gratterall, he hasn't pitched in a while either. And where are you going to place him exactly? It's not going to be in high leverage right away, I would not think. So that said, the depth, the extra arms, that is all going to be something that the Dodgers rely on and lean on in this series. They are most likely going to have another bullpen game. It's almost certain they will have another bullpen game. And with Flaherty and Buehler and Yamamoto, we're not talking about, in most cases, 6 or 7 innings. Though Flaherty did do that in Game 1 of the NLCS. We're looking at shorter starts 2 times through the order. And at that point, the bullpen takes over. And the more arms you have healthy and ready, the better off you are.
Ken, do we know anything else yet? I know officially we haven't gotten the roster decisions, but you mentioned Vesia and Gratterall. The other 2 names seem to be Miguel Rojas, who's trending towards being on the roster after missing the last round, and Nestor Cortes we've talked about quite a bit. But just curious if there are any updates and if it sounds like we're leaning towards them both being in there. I'm also assuming that Rojas might not play as much of a factor because you're just going to stick Edman in there at shortstop every day, right?
I just checked to see on X if there was anything new, but nothing yet. And Cortes, I think, almost is certain to be on the Yankees roster. They see him as a guy who can really help them against Ohtani and other left-handed hitters out of the bullpen. As for Rojas, he's an interesting case. He says he's in a better spot now physically with the rest. He's got a torn adductor that's going to require surgery. Now, that's the bottom line. It's going to be something that puts him at less than 100%, even if he says he's feeling the best he has been. So you've got Edman, you've got Kike. Miguel Rojas, to me at this point, probably is a luxury that you don't really need and probably are not going to play very often. So I'll be interested to see how they handle that particular spot. And Tony Gonsolin also threw a live bullpen on Wednesday. I would imagine he is at least a possibility, though I don't believe he is as strong a possibility as Vesia and Gratterall.
Ken, do you feel like when these rosters come out, it's like when you tried out for a team in middle school and you look down, like you already knew the top and you're just like, oh, Rosenthal. Dang it. Who on that list are you looking down the list? Because obviously, you know, the normals. Who on that list are you most like, whoa, like, I wonder if I didn't see this person, you know, is it somebody that's going to be left off or is it somebody that you're like, that person should be in here?
I don't know. First off, Eric, I was a basketball player as a kid, so I was always looking at that list and never seeing my name, and it was hurtful. But I don't know that there'll be any great surprises. We just discussed the names that are in play. I would guess if Gonsolin is on there, that would be a big surprise. Gratterall is still a question in my mind. If you put him on, how much do you trust him? So all of these things are in play, but I don't know that we're going to be shocked by anything we see.
Is Yamamoto 100%? Have you heard anything that he is not 100% because he was off, came back, they kind of built him up, and then they were building him up into the postseason?
It seems to me that he is 100%. And basically, the way he has pitched shows that. He's made use of his slider again, which was a pitch he was not throwing earlier when it was bothering his arm. He has pitched pretty well in his last 2 starts. So I would say he's as good as he's going to be, or has been, since the start of the season. And keep in mind, they're pitching him in Game 2. They did that so they could line him up for extra rest if Game 6 is necessary. They're confident he can go 5, 6 at most, probably, but they feel pretty good about him right now.
Hey, Ken, we had Tyler Glasnow on the other day. I'm sure you appreciate, his openness to the media and his accessibility, right? Many guys that were hurt at this time wouldn't even talk to media, and he's awesome. I just want to give him credit for that. But also, he talked about how difficult it is for him to watch, but also, if his team wins a World Series, they win. The other part that stood out to me is he said he felt like he came back too soon. He was working against the timeline of the postseason. He said he probably came back about twice as quickly as he should have. So I wonder, my question is, if Andrew Freeman and staff are going to think about an answer like that in the offseason when they're trying to figure out ways to have a healthier starting rotation. Because I'm only imagining what this series would look like if it was Glasnow starting tonight against Garrett Cole. So I'm like, what's the deal with the medical staff? Not that it's their fault, but can they be more convincing to players and say, hey, we need to wait and we need to just hope that we're going to win the World or make to the World Series, and you're going to have to only be available at that point on your progression back from your issue?
I don't know, Scott. That was the plan with Glasnow. They never expected him to throw 180 innings. They knew that he would require downtime during the regular season, and they were hopeful that it would lead to a point where, yes, by October 1st, he was ready to go full tilt. Didn't happen that way. Now, perhaps the timing of his injury, when it occurred, prevented them from doing what they wanted to do. And he had to rush because the time was running out and all of that. I get it. But, man, they never were under any illusions that Glasnow was going to be some kind of workhorse. They knew that they'd be dealing with a guy who would, again, require some time off, time on the IL during the season so they can max out with him in the postseason. Didn't happen that way. I'm sure they'll take a different look or a new look at the way they handled him and everyone else on their staff based on the injuries that they've had. Andrew Freeman, their president of baseball operations, has talked about reimagining the way they approach pitching in general, and injuries are going to be a huge part of that.
Hey FT fam, it's Alana Rizzo. I can't stop talking about Vuori. Vuori is perfect if you are sick and tired of traditional old workout gear. I wear Vuori in all settings, not just in the gym, because honestly, it's comfier than whatever you're currently wearing. No joke. I'm wearing Vuori daily leggings right now. They're high-waisted with the drawstring and cuffed ankles. They look good and they feel great. You're going to love them. Vuori is an investment in your happiness. For our listeners, they are offering 20% off your first purchase. Get yourself some of the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet at vuori.com/foul. That's VUORI.com/foul. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. Go to vuori.com/foul and discover the versatility of Vuori clothing.
Yeah. My bad, Ken. I wanted to ask you, we saw Freddie Freeman. He missed a couple games in that last series. Can the Dodgers afford to have his bat out of the lineup for just a couple games? And where is he with that ankle? Because there is no tomorrow after this series. Where is Freddie?
He's better, he says, but still it's his front ankle when he's swinging, and he has a hard time keeping it as strong and stable as it could be and would be under normal circumstances. So with him, Cam, it seems like it's day to day. We'll see how he progresses. Obviously, the time off, I'm sure, served him well. He was off his feet, didn't have to do everything that he would normally do while preparing to play. But at the same time, he's got a severely sprained right ankle, and it was always going to take 4 to 6 weeks to heal, and he's been playing on it. So he's delaying the healing process. I don't know that he'll be 100%. I do expect him to play as often as he can. Obviously, the middle 3 games in New York, when it might be colder, maybe he requires a day off there. But they've done okay without him, even the days where he has not played. If you remember, they've got Tommy Edman moving up to 4th in the lineup when Freddie's not in there. He's gone nuts. So obviously, they're better off with Freddie Freeman, but they've proven so far they can survive without him as well.
Ken, last one from Media Day yesterday. Aaron Judge does the Derek Jeter process to the most part, kind of just gives you the cookie cutter answers. That's fine. That's his style. He did point out yesterday that he wishes that owners and teams would be more aggressive in off seasons. I think that's no secret. I mean, look at how last off season played out, for example. Of course, some fans replied and said, "Oh, you're out of touch. You're on the Yankees." For me, I'm looking at previous World Series teams, and even though they're not always the highest payroll teams, which is good for the sport, they're always teams that were active either in the offseason or at the trade deadline or both. Rarely do you see a team where you're like, they did absolutely nothing from that year to this year, and here they are. So just curious, what you take from comments like that, because I understood what he was saying. Like, activity is good for the game. Of course, it's good for players and their wallets, but I'm even talking about trade deadline. The Twins are the example. They did nothing the past two trade deadlines. They got punished for it.
I totally understand what he's saying, and he's speaking for all teams, really, not just the Yankees. He's saying, and this is a point the union has made in labor negotiations, the sport is better when every team is trying to the fullest. Now, the Pittsburgh Pirates are not going to try in the sense that the New York Yankees try, right? They don't have the resources to do that. But could the Pittsburgh Pirates do more? I would expect that every fan of the Pirates would say yes to that question. And it's interesting, too, the Guardians didn't do a whole lot last offseason. Didn't do a whole lot at the deadline, really. And yet they had not a pretty good year. They had a great year. So it's not always required the teams do that, but look at a team like Kansas City. It went from 106 losses last year to a playoff team this year, in part because they spent in the offseason on pitching that they desperately needed, Waka and Lugo and others as well. So spending isn't always the answer. We know that. At the same time, it can help. And it can help in a big way if you spend correctly. That's the trick of this whole thing.
Ken, you're always head down. Whenever people see you at the game, you're always head down, working, talking to somebody. Are you ever starstruck at these World Series? Have you ever met somebody at these World Series? Because celebrities come out, because it's our Super Bowl. This is the biggest stage. Have you ever been like, whoa, hey, oh, you know my name? Is there anybody for you, Ken, that you've, or that you would like to meet if there hasn't been anybody that you've been starstruck by?
That's a good question, Eric. I don't know that I've been starstruck too often. And it's funny because when you cover baseball, that's your job. And you meet Aaron Judge. You meet Aaron Judge because you are covering him and asking him questions and that kind of thing. I guess certain Hollywood people, if I met them, I'd be starstruck by. But I don't know that that's happened too often. Now, Sandy Koufax, I did shake his hand during one of the games during the NLCS, and of course he has great meaning to all baseball fans everywhere. And Magic Johnson was in the same area, and I saw him. And it's cool to see those guys, but you're right. Mostly my head is down and trying to do my job.
Ken, I know we promised, but it actually just came out, so on your way out, Juan Toribio reporting Vesia and Gratterall are on the roster, but a shocker here, truly a shocker. Evan Phillips is not on the Dodgers roster here for the World Series. He suffered an injury. Did you hear about this?
Hold on, yes. And all right, what happened was in Game 6 of the NLCS, Evan Phillips was supposed to come out for a second inning. He did not. And I asked him about this yesterday. I did not get a chance to see him until yesterday. And I said, hey, what happened here? And he said, listen, normal soreness, things happen during the year, especially this time of year. And I was having trouble recovering the way I had earlier in the postseason and certainly during the regular season. Now, he told me he fully expected to be on the roster, but there was something going on in Game 6, and evidently, even though Evan put his best face on yesterday, there was something serious enough to keep him off. So that's where that comes from. Something happened in Game 6 where he just couldn't go that second inning. I don't know that he was going to pitch the full inning, but he was at least going to come out. I believe Marte was the first batter. So I was aware of this. I did kind of know, but at the same time, when I asked him yesterday, he was fully confident he'd be on.
Oh, I mean, like my heart just now, when the guy's that close, and he's a great guy too. I just root for good players, so that sucks. But I'm glad we caught you for a little more info there on the back end. Ken, thank you so much. Of course, enjoy Game 1. We'll be watching, and then we'll see you next week for Fair and for Foul Territory.
Thanks, guys.
Hey everybody, be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.